Welcome back to the Gardening with Joy and Holly radio show. With this hot weather that many of us have been experiencing, tree diaper, that's going to be the answer for you and your plants to keep you both sane.
Tree diaper is a revolutionary watering system that slowly releases water around the base of any tree or plant as the soil dries. The tree diaper is filled with water from rain or when you water and slowly releases water over 3 weeks. No more overwatering or underwatering with the tree diaper. Every time it rains, tree diaper recharges. No pipes, hoses, or electricity needed. Water your plants and trees, whether they're down by the house, down the road, or in the back 40. Also works under mulch. Whether you're a first-time gardener or advanced, tree diaper will improve the way you water your plants. Made in the USA, you can find out all the sizes they have available at treediaper.com. That's treediaper.com.
Insane plants. That could be dangerous. So let's talk about tomato care, Holly. Most of us, a lot of us, based on where you're listening, you may have tomatoes already blossoming and producing, and you're harvesting them. Others may have just simply recently put them in the ground. But we're going to tell about what you should be doing so we all can get on the same page so we can have beautiful, luscious, tasty tomatoes in a couple of weeks, maybe a month and a half.
Absolutely. And I think one of the biggest things that people often don't think about is supporting your tomatoes, and it does not mean taking them to group therapy.
Oh, I was going to say emotional or physical?
Physical supporting your tomatoes.
This is my emotional support tomato. We're not making fun of you if you need emotional support. Well, that's not what we're doing.
No, not at all. So tomatoes, you want to stake them, use a Florida weave, use a cage,
What happens if you just let them be? Why can't we do that?
A lot of them will just sit on the ground and either animals might get them or they might just rot into your garden.
Yeah. 50% of your crop is gone. We tried this a couple of years ago, and it's right. We lost half the crop by them being on the ground.
It was kind of us just forgetting, and then.
But it taught us a lesson which we can share with all of you.
It's accidental science.
Yeah, we made the mistake, so you don't have to.
Exactly, and then mulch. Mulch is important.
Well, what kind of mulch? Can we use any kind of mulch?
No.
Okay.
So you wouldn't want to use rubber pellets or something. You wouldn't want to use
synthetic.
Synthetic mulch. You don't want to use anything that might add any pesticides to your soil and or weed seeds. So with that being said, if you want to use dried grass clippings, that's fine. But if your grass was sprayed by either you or somebody you hire with an herbicide, and then even if you let the grass clippings dry, that will seep into the soil and then kill your plants. Right.
And we done a video, a 60-second garden tip, a couple of years ago on that. And somebody had asked that question in one of the gardening groups this past week. And I shared that video, and she came back and commented underneath it, well, that's a big no for me, because we talked about if you got chemicals you used on your lawn, it's going to kill your... So she was happy that we informed her not to kill her plants because of that chemical that was in the grass clippings. Mulch can be straw, shredded. We've used shredded paper, leaves, lot of options when it comes. And people will use, and we talked about this a couple of shows ago, weed barrier or weed cloth to suppress the weeds. Many options there. Many options when it comes to that.
Right, and it's just important because it helps suppress the weeds. It helps keep the water, and it helps maintain that moisture, and also
why do we want to want to retain that moisture? What if we let those plants dry out? What happens then?
So a lot of times, if you let plants dry out, they're going to be more susceptible to diseases, and that includes blossom and rot. And B, then they are weak, so that makes them more susceptible to diseases. But it also creates things like when you have that blown out tomato or the cracking of the skin of the tomato, you can prevent that by keeping the water levels consistent.
Well, I think we need to address the blossom end rot because 99.5 times out of 100, it's because you're not watering enough. Blossom end rot can occur with too much water, but many of us, including us ourselves here at the Gardening with Joy and Holly radio show, we often far underwater than overwater. So by underwatering, it's preventing the available calcium in your soil, which is causing that developmental issue at the bottom of the fruit to not fully develop because it can't access the calcium, which you have plenty of in most cases in your soil. That water cannot transfer it up to the fruit.
Right. And that is important to be able to allow those tomatoes have access to that, or any of your plants.
Keep it moist like a damp sponge.
Right. So you also want to feed your plants.
And we can do this in a couple of ways. There are organic liquid fertilizers in which you can feed your plants. That you can do that. There are granular fertilizers in which you can mix with water, like the IV Organics 6 Macro. Use coupon code radio10 at ivorganics.com, and that one bag will do 20 gallons. There are other means of making your own. You can make your own weed tea, WEEDS, by the weeds that are coming out of your garden. We have done this. There's a video on our parent website. And you basically steep the weeds in a giant tote for a number of days. Now, I will tell you, it stinks really bad.
Yeah.
But it has a lot of nutrient value to feed your plants with. You would want to do this hours before, and it's hard to plan this out, but the best scenario would be make your weed tea, let it sit there for a week or 2 weeks, let it steep, and it's going to rain tomorrow morning or tomorrow afternoon. Water your garden with this stinky weed tea, and then let that water that it rains flush it into the soil.
Right. And
more thoroughly.
Yeah, more thoroughly. It's not going to smell pretty, but you can feed your plants with the weed tea, and it does provide a nice feed. If you don't want to go through that process, or maybe you don't have the space for it, you can get a liquid fertilizer.
You can just do compost tea.
Yeah, you can just do compost tea. Whatever works for you. Now, you want to trim your tomatoes.
You can in order to soften or lessen the amount of diseases in which your tomato plant will potentially get. 90% of the problems your tomato plant is going to face is soil splashing up on it. So by mulching it, you're going to greatly reduce the amount of soil splashing up because there's a barrier there. Secondly, if you continue to trim the lower 6 to 8 inches of the leaves from ground up, the stem, you're going to open up a lower area for airflow and the reduction of splash up, what may be there, because there's nothing for it to splash onto. And this will greatly slow down the potential of early blight in your tomato patch. And you want to continue to trim this every 2 to 3 weeks. Just go through and clean it out. I would recommend throwing the leaves away. Don't compost them because we don't know what they have on them. And there are some diseases, if harbored in warm conditions long enough, it will manifest itself and be able to be spread whenever you reapply that good compost to the garden. So it's better. I know there's some studies out there showing, it's going to be, I would much rather just throw it away and be safe rather than, I got another problem here.
Absolutely. So you want to make sure you trim your, the bottom part of your tomatoes there.
And then what we've all been waiting for after all this time is the harvest.
Right, and this is important, and you're thinking, well, I'm not even close to that yet. But the important part is you want to harvest often, and what this does is it allows the plant to know that what essentially is its seed is getting harvested, and then it wants to put up more of its seed because it's like, I'm doing good, I'm going to procreate, and that's why you want to harvest frequently.
From flower to ripened fruit is typically 20 to 30 days based on the type of fruit, cherry versus beefsteak. And as you begin to see the tomato develop ripeness, the tomato ripens from the bottom around. So if you begin to see that tomato ripening, you can harvest it a day or two early. Bring it inside and it will ripen. It's not going to speed up the ripening process if you leave it on the vine. Now, if you're in an area where you don't have to worry about people stealing your tomatoes or animals or tomato hornworm issues, then you can leave it on the vine. But if you're harvesting every 2 or 3 days and you start seeing tomatoes turning, go ahead and harvest them. It's not going to increase the sweetness or the acidity level or whatever by leaving it on the vine any longer. Now, if you are waiting to collect seeds on a particular variety, then you want to leave that fruit on the vine as long as possible, almost to the point where it's falling off of the vine from rottenness. So that would be something you would want. But frequently harvest, that's what's going to allow these plants to continue.
I think another thing is just to look for problems. So if you go outside and look at your tomatoes and you see that one looks droopy and weird and you're not sure why, look under the leaves, look on the stem. Think about, when was the last time I watered?
Ask questions.
Yeah. Just don't be like, oh, that one looks droopy. That's weird.
It'll be fine tomorrow.
It'll be fine tomorrow. And then maybe the one next to it will not be fine. So you want to consider that. And sometimes there's stuff like late blight that occur. And by the time late blight usually occurs, you're pretty much done gardening for the season anyway. So that's important to think about. You want to consider your tomatoes and their care throughout the entire season.
I mean, we could do 4 shows on all the problems your tomato plants could have. Okay, that's not an exaggeration. You could spend an hour on each problem. So there's a lot of things that are out there that we don't have the time available to share, but we give you the starting point, and then you can always ask us questions at gardentalkradio@gmail.com or call us at 1-800-927-SHOW. And if you do send an email, try to attach some photographs. Makes everybody's identification of that particular problem and the solution a whole lot simpler.
Well, speaking of problems,
summer is in full swing, Holly. And we're not looking back. And when summer comes, and this used to not be a problem where we're stationed out of, but now, that was 10 years ago, but now it is. The Japanese beetles are here, and they're in your garden, and they're wreaking havoc on anything that is green and growing.
Absolutely. So if you're looking to successfully control beetles without damaging the environment, look no further than Beetle Gone from Phylum Bioproducts. It's derived from a naturally occurring soil bacteria. Beetle Gone is the only organic solution that successfully controls beetle invaders. Just mix the powder with water and spray on your plants. Once ingested, the targeted pests will stop feeding and die. And since it's the only organic BT product that you know, is a great choice to use on your fruits and veggies in addition to your ornamental flowers and trees.
Not only does Beetle Gone work, but my friends, the best part about this is it's safe to use around beneficial insects such as ladybugs, bees, and butterflies with no harmful issues with water toxicity. That's Beetle Gone from PhylumBioproducts.com. Find out more at BeetleGone.com and use coupon code GardenTalk10 at checkout to save 10% on your order. That's BeetleGone.com.
For more information, please visit theWisconsinVegetableGardener.com.